everyone. Uh, glad, glad I'm able to do this on my birthday. I don't know if anyone will show up, but if not, I wanted to share that I have had a really great birthday period, for lack of a better word. When Esabelle and her sister came over, they got me eShop gift cards. Um, I went to my final day of assistant teaching for the semester, and I got quite a lot of amazing birthday presents. I even brought them with me. I've got this Saint trainer, which actually has a bit of a dual meaning to it. And then this is a notebook saying, "For God, nothing shall be impossible." Hello, Timon? If you could give me a pronunciation guide, that'd be great. Okay, kudos for making it different. Oh my gosh, if there's one thing I cannot stand on Facebook, it's that they now have AI generated birthday wishes. Like, people can't even take their time to get on their keyboard and type out something like, I don't know, "I hope you have a wonderful birthday full of pizza." Like, as if you couldn't tell. That's my favorite food. So, welcome in to however you pronounce your name. What kind of games do you like to play? And if you don't like games, Time on. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the pronunciation. So, what kind of games do you like to play? And if you don't like games, what kind of stuff do you like in general? Um, while I'm waiting for you to respond, I was doing some reflecting. I suppose this can be for those that are joining late on the Bible verse about St. Thomas and how, after 10 apostles and presumably, the other disciples that weren't apostles as well, are all saying, "We've seen the risen Lord and he's back from the dead." Minecraft, I played Lego City for the Switch. That was a really good one. But when I tried to play it on the 3DS, it was so foggy. Like, it felt like you could barely see anything, and the controls were weird, so I gave up. But Lego City Undercover for the Switch was phenomenal. I really loved all the different costumes and like the cool parkour he could do. Driving around the open world is really nice. It was surprisingly big too. Like, I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly, because it originally came out on the Wii U, which was the same console as Breath of the Wild, so it obviously could work. It's just that not a whole lot of people played it because they were like, "A Lego game on the Wii U? We need a system seller, you guys." So I think people were unwilling to take risks with the Wii U. It's the only game you got, so that's why you played it 10 plus hours a week? Okay. Yeah, I guess I can see that kind of logic. Like, I remember when I first got my Nintendo 64, I only had Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. So you can guess that I started to get really good at those games after a while. Super Mario 64, I actually got so good at it that I beat the whole game pacifist except for the Bowser battles because I didn't know how to sequence break past them. But like, I didn't kill any of the other enemies. Um, I have a strategy video on YouTube if you care to know my secrets. I just wasn't able to live stream the whole thing. I think I tried, and then I accidentally jumped on a Goomba. So, unfortunately, it didn't work. But I hope you're able to get other games. Let me know if you need any recommendations. Also, do you like to do any other fun things besides gaming? Like, I don't know, do you have any hobbies, any favorite movies? Did you see the Galaxy movie? My last live stream, I even flat out said we're going to spoil the movie. Not a single person asked for spoilers. So, oh well, their loss. They could have done it, but they chose not to. So I've been thinking about St. Thomas and how Thomas had, at least, at minimum, he had 10 other apostles that said, "We have seen the Lord." Surely he had spent, who knows, at minimum, probably like 2 or 3 years with Jesus, And Jesus kept saying, the Son of Man is going to rise again. And despite all of that, despite all the miracles he'd seen, and despite Jesus' constant warnings, you collect stamps. Yeah, I saw both the new movies. The old, if you mean the old one from 1993, I can see why she always forgets. It sounds pretty terrible from what I've seen. But yeah, the 2023 Mario movie was phenomenal. In my opinion, it's my third favorite movie. I have weird tastes when it comes to movies, so maybe I'm not the best judge of character on this, but I just I really liked how reverent it was to the source material. Lots of really cool cameos, and it looked beautiful. The music was phenomenal. It was a Mario Brothers movie. You got exactly what was advertised on the title, and in my opinion, that's honestly what a video game movie should be. Is you feel like you're getting what you get in the games. Admittedly, as a fan of the Mario RPGs, I kind of wanted a little bit more than that, but what I did get, I liked. I did not see the Minecraft movie because I have never played Minecraft, and from what I have seen of people talking about the Minecraft movie, it looks like something I very much would not enjoy. Seems like it relies on a lot of, I don't know how to say this without being offensive, but like little kid humor. Like how, I guess it depends on what age you are. But like when I was a kid, body odor was a big a big sense of humor, like smelly armpits and making noises with your backside. Like that was considered funny when I was in school, and it just seemed like that kind of humor where it's just like you can definitely tell who the target demographic was for this. Whereas like with the Mario movie, I could see multiple age groups loving it. I mean, I love it, and I'm certainly not the target demographic. You like the Beatles? I wish I could say the same thing, but boy, did my dad overplay the Beatles a lot when I was a kid. And so it got me to the point where I no longer want to hear the Beatles ever, ever, ever again. Just their nasally voices just get on my nerves and stress me out so much. Yo mama? I know that was a big slang term at one point. I'm guessing there was something in the movie that was like based on that. Oh, you mean your favorite movie? Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I talk too fast that I lose the context of what people are saying. But as far as the Minecraft movie's aesthetics, honestly, I don't get the hate behind it. Like, yes, I do agree that casting Jack Black as Steve was odd. Like, he claimed that his character design was so creative, and yet he was just wearing a blue shirt, and he was just basically being himself the whole time. Which, to be fair, I haven't played Minecraft, but I've heard Steve doesn't really have a personality, so they had to get creative. And they probably figured kids like Jack Black. He was also in the Mario movie, and kids like Bowser. Oh, the funny thing when you were at school. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I remember a couple of the kids said that. Not too much, thankfully. Thankfully, at my school, I would say we were pretty behind the times, I would say. Like, yeah, we didn't really do a whole lot of trendy stuff, which was nice. It's probably why I'm so behind the times as it is. Like, I got into pretty much everything I've ever gotten into was like super late. Um, the only system that I can think of that I got at launch day was the Switch 2. And I feel very proud of myself for doing that because I well, for one, I wanted the novelty of being able to say, "Hey, I got a system on launch day." And I get to play like all these cool games right when they come out. I also just there's a part of me that kind of feels like I couldn't take gaming as seriously with just the Switch 1. So like if you're gonna get the Switch 2, you gotta be willing to get it for more than just the first party stuff. You also have to look at is now we can play other third party games that you couldn't play before, and look at it as a backwards compatibility machine because there are still Switch 1 games coming out, more than there are Switch 2 games actually. And you can pretend that those are new games to play on the Switch 2. We also weren't trendy because it was a Catholic school in a village of 80 people in Belgium. Okay. I went to a Catholic school for a little bit. By a little bit, like a month, because I had a very weird schooling situation. I don't remember learning too much about my faith at that Catholic school. I just remember thinking that I thought it was stupid that the girls all hated the guys all hated the girls, except for me. The girls really liked me, but they didn't like any of the other guys. Your mom had a Nintendo. Oh, that's a shame they gave it away. You gotta have Banjo-Kazooie. That's like the crowning achievement. Hey, Paul, sorry I cannot stay. Family's other birthdays. Thank you, John Paul. Glad you could stop by for a couple of seconds. Hope you enjoy those other birthdays. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I found Catholic school to be very, very weird. Like, I got lost my first day of school, for starters, because I wasn't used to the way the hallways were structured. And then, yeah, both mine and John Paul's are pretty Pope-like, I would say. I remember one of the first books we ever read at school was, I think it was like Ramona Quimbley Goes to Kindergarten, and the teacher said, "Wait here for the present." And Ramona didn't realize that that was a figure of speech. So she refused to get out of her seat the whole class because she said, "The teacher promised me that we'd get a present." And thinking about it in retrospect, I realized that teacher had to be so stupid because, like, what preschooler is going to get those kinds of figure of speeches? Doesn't she know that preschoolers are kind of limited in their imagination? Like, I'm sure when I was a preschooler, I would have thought the same thing because I was a super literal kid. People would ask, "What's up?" And I would say, "The sky." So, yeah, I just don't get what she was thinking there. We had to go to church Sunday and Tuesday. Wow. Okay. That's certainly a different kind of curriculum. I don't think we ever had to go to church whenever I was in Catholic school. I just remember there was a religion class that was mandatory. And I don't remember too much about it. I do remember my teacher's name, though. I just won't say it in case I get her in trouble. But I remember she had a pretty interesting last name, and I thought it was just so much fun to say. But I do remember one thing very vividly about her, and that's that she never got mad at me if I didn't turn in my homework, because again, she knew what kind of crazy situation I had. And one time she sat on her desk, and the students kept saying, "But you don't let us sit on our desks." And she said, "Call it teacher's privilege." Oh, adults. I find it so funny how they always tell kids not to do something, and then the kids wonder why they're doing it. So they don't seem to get this idea that like there's context. Did I have nuns as teachers? Nope. Nope. I have since learned that there's a difference between a religious sister and a religious nun. Um, Long story short, nuns take a vow of stability, sisters don't. So what that means is sisters are asked to go out into the world and to actually make a difference. They want to be seen. They want to like actually have a job and go out into the community and reach out to people. Nuns stay in cloisters. And so they spend basically the rest of their lives in their convent doing things behind the scenes. So like praying for everyone else in the world. I'm pretty sure nuns also take another, I don't know if it's a vow, but like an agreement that they like won't see their family for a certain amount of time, if ever. So there's this joke in the Catholic Church called, "If you ever think you've seen a nun, it's probably a sister, because sisters don't take a vow of solidarity." Same thing with priests versus monks. Priests take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but not solidarity. We had blue nuns and black nuns. Both have all died. Wow, that's depressing. I don't remember if there's any significance to the colors that they wear. Um, I knew a sister who, I think she would always wear black, but I knew she was a sister because she definitely was out and about, and she did not strike me as the type that wanted to be cloistered. Another thing that's to note about nuns is that when they take their vow of stability, it also means that they have to stay in their convent for the rest of their lives. Whereas sisters, like, yes, they'll have a convent that they live in, but they might be asked to like relocate to a different convent. And usually they'll also be required to have a driver's license so that they can like get to their jobs and do other things. And like they're told they don't just want to sit around all day. They would yell if you went too close. Interesting. Yeah, no, I must not have had a very atypical Catholic school upbringing. But again, I didn't have a typical upbringing to begin with. I was the kind of kid that I guess you would consider me the oddball if you had to consider me any kind of archetype. Like, I didn't like fitting in, and oh, okay, well, you have a great rest of your day, Timon. Thanks so much for dropping by and for not giving a generic birthday wish. I really appreciate that. Alrighty, so let's get back to what I was saying earlier while I'm waiting for everyone else to show up, assuming anyone does show up. If not, they can watch the replay. So St. Thomas had at least, at minimum, 10 other apostles who had witnessed all of these signs and all of these miracles and all of Jesus' teachings. Heck, Jesus might have taught other stuff than what was written in the Bible. We know he did because that's the foundation of our religion. And yet, Thomas still did not believe all those people that all said the same thing. And I was trying to figure out what the heck was going through Thomas's mind during that. Like, maybe if one person said that, I could see that being like, oh, okay, well, that person could be a lunatic. But you're literally calling every single one of your friends liars. Did he not like trust the other apostles? Did they have like some kind of feud or something like that? Admittedly, the Chosen has something that happens in, I believe it's season 4, that could possibly explain why Thomas did that, but the Bible gives us no such context. So it got me thinking about what Jesus said to Thomas after he decided that he was going to actually start believing. He said, "Blessed are those who do not see and yet believe." And I'm thinking, if I ever come across an atheist or an agnostic that hears all of these stories about people who have had miraculous healings, or even take me, the amount of times that I've had healings from lactose intolerance or being sick, or I had my back and shoulders healed, and the amount of times they still insist on saying, oh, you could have just been psychosomatic, or oh, it could have just been a coincidence, or maybe you wanted a miracle to happen, so you just believed that it happened. And yeah, they don't see, so they don't believe. Hello, Razul? Sorry, I'm going to need a pronunciation guide for this. You're the second person today that I wasn't sure how to pronounce the name, but welcome in. Yes, everything is going fantastic. I've been having, my birthday's tomorrow, and I already feel like it's today because I got this super cool Saint Trainer cup. I got this notebook. It's because I went to class today because I'm the assistant teacher for 4th and 5th graders. So the teacher and the DRE both remembered that my birthday was tomorrow. But how are you doing, Rasul, however it's pronounced? What kind of things do you like? Stress the last syllable? Rasul? Is that what you mean? Because here in America, we don't use the word stress when it comes to people's names. So it might be a bit of a foreign concept for us. Rasul, like that? All right. I probably butchered that, but hopefully that's good enough. But anyway, yeah, what kind of things do you like to do? Do you like to play video games, watch movies? Um, I should tell you now, since I believe you're a newbie here. Here on this channel, we believe that interrupting is the best medicine because lots of different people come here with lots of different things they want to talk about. Some people come in, they want to talk about psychology. Some people just want to talk about games. Some people want to talk about God. So just if you want to say something, say it. We definitely believe that everyone should have a voice or a metaphorical voice here. So, yes, if I'm talking too much, interrupt me. Please interrupt me. You like Nintendo games, music of all genres except black metal and gangster rap? I also don't like black metal or gangster rap, except the DK rap and the ukulele rap. Those are the only two that I like. I also really like Nintendo games. And as far as music, I really like orchestral. That's my favorite genre. Second favorite would probably be big band, which is like a form of orchestral. Third favorite would be jazz. Just think almost anything in Persona 5. My favorite video game soundtrack, I think cumulatively it would be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but as far as like unique compositions, probably Ori and the Will of the Wisps, maybe. Because that game has consistently good orchestral pieces. A couple of third-party games have really good soundtracks. Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's a pretty good one. Except for when it decides to randomly switch music genres, then I think it's annoying as heck. But the songs that are good are very good. But what kind of Nintendo games do you like? Do you like third-party? Ah, yes, the inevitable question. So I really don't like talking about that video, with all due respect. I do have a video that explains my point of view, so you can go ahead and watch that one. I'll type it out in chat just in case you forget. It's called I deleted, oops, I misspelled that. Deleted the memed video early. Here's why. And something I said in that video, which I will repeat here, is I have other thanking God for it videos where I have like something secular that I thank God for that people can still watch. I've never, like I said earlier before you showed up, I was always the oddball in school. I was that kid that everyone thought was weird, and I loved it. I relished in the oddballness. And one of those things that I've always been weird about is I don't like the idea of herd mentality. Like everyone else is doing it, so therefore I have to do it. So I don't like memes. I don't like viral posts. I don't like trends. You know, any of that stuff that's just like everyone else is doing it. I'm just like, get me away from it. Even the Switch 2. Like, the Switch 2 is not a very popular, like, yes, it sold well, but it's got a lot of negative press. And so I'm just like, well, you know what? I'm going to be the positive press. And I'm going to talk about what I like about the Switch 2. Do I like everything about it? No. But if I was a trendy person, I would have gotten Pokemon Champions and Pokemon Legends ZA. Yucks. I'm going to spit those games out of my mouth. They look terrible. And I feel sorry for anyone that bought those games because, like, I can get if you're a Pokemon fan, you want to play it. But as far as like supporting it, that's where I draw the line. Because it's like, okay, if you like the game despite all of its bugs and flaws, then maybe I could see that being like, oh, okay, well, if you're just the not picky type, oh well. But if you are the picky type, where you're going on and on about how terribly they run and how horrible the graphics are and how there's no voice acting and the music's all right, but everything else is terrible about it, and yet you still go out and pay $70 when you could just get the $60 Switch version, it strikes me as unintentional enabling, because what's going to happen if enough people buy the game? Game Freak is going to say, we can get away with it. So they'll charge $80 for the next game, and people are stupid enough to just buy it anyway without either getting it secondhand or waiting for it to go on sale or renting it like I do. You love Mario Kart, Smash Brothers. Oh, wow. Dang. You got a lot of good ones. Um, I did not like Metroid Dread either, but I don't like any Metroid games. So that's one thing to say. Pokemon X and Y, I have not played those games, although can you blame me? I'm not much of a Pokemon fan, but if I were to play Pokemon, I would rather play those than anything that came out during the Switch or Switch 2 generation. Because at least with X and Y, they tried to go into 3D and with the 3DS's capabilities. So, like, I could say, okay, it's a first time effort. Like, give them a little bit of grace. But the fact that Pokemon still animates as though it's on the 3DS, that's where I'm just like, okay, what is your excuse? This is the longest running or the most popular media franchise in the world. And you still treat it like a 3DS game from 2014. Despicable. But I also love Mario Kart, also love Smash Brothers. Depends on the Zelda game. 3D Mario, I like most 3D Marios except for Super Mario 3D World. Um, Growing up with Mario 64, that was the first game I ever owned actually, was Super Mario 64. Mario Party 2, I also love Mario Party 2. It's my second favorite Mario Party actually, next to I flip flop between Superstars and Jamboree, but I like both of those. Star Fox Assault. I've never played Star Fox Assault. I really want to, though, so I hope it comes to the GameCube. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. The Thousand Year Door remake was my game of the year of 2024. And I was one of the few people that actually signed Arlo's petition for hashtag remaster Thousand Year Door. And I am 99% confident that Nintendo acknowledged the petition because if you look at the credits of the remake, when it's listing the special thanks, at the very end, it says dot 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 and you in all capital letters. Tell me that's not a coincidence. Oh, yeah, The Thousand Year Door is great, with one exception. Chapter 2 is miserable. It's easier in the remake because they adjusted the AI of I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't played it, but let's just say you control more than Mario in that chapter and the AI in the GameCube version was abysmal. It was terrible. Oh, excuse me for a minute. Ooh. Let me respond to this real quick. All right, that was a reply I'd been waiting for eons. But yeah, chapter 2. Just I always hate replaying that one. But what were some of your favorite memories of Thousand Year Door? Oh yeah, yeah, pre Sticker Star Paper Mario. Now I will say, I do have the very 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 unpopular opinion that uh, Super Paper Mario had a phenomenal story and great writing and not much else. Because by recently it was like 5 years ago, um, I beat Super Paper Mario, and I was thoroughly miserable whenever story stuff wasn't happening. Like actually playing it was an absolute nightmare. There were just so many bizarre gameplay decisions that made me just wonder, like, were these remnants of this being a GameCube game? Because like there's this one sequence of events that you have to remember to hit the blocks in a specific order. And then there's like this other sign that says you have to press all the buttons on the controller at once in a certain pattern. And then the fact that you had to play with the Wii remote sideways and you couldn't play with a nunchuck meant that my hands were constantly in pain. It was just miserable. The music, the non RNG combat mechanics, unique characters, sense of scale, oh yeah, 100% agree. They were all phenomenal. So phenomenal, in fact, that for the remake, I have now done not just one, but two BP only runs. Ancient Structures Exploration, very nice. I did play the GameCube version first, actually. Oh, you mean Super Paper Mario? Just a second, I'm going to respond to this because again, this is a message I've been waiting for a very, very long time. Sorry about that. But no, yeah, Super Paper Mario was originally going to be a GameCube game. And then they realized the Wii was coming out, so they said, well, the GameCube was our least successful system at the time besides the Virtual Boy, so let's just jump shift and it'll sell better. It worked for everyone except for me, because I thought that the Wii Remote on its side made for some very, very, very awkward moments. And my overall takeaway of Super Paper Mario was phenomenal story, phenomenal writing. Everything else was pretty bad. But I will say, without spoiling too much, there are some amazing set pieces that I think, had the game been designed better, it would have probably topped Thousand Year Door, no contest. But in my opinion, my favorite Paper Mario game is Thousand Year Door because I like the grandness of the whole thing. Like, yes, I get that there's a lot of backtracking, and yes, I also hate the backtracking. The Thousand Year Door remake definitely helped with that, even if I think they probably could have gone a little bit further. But at the same time, like, the set pieces are just so engaging. Do I think they'll remake Paper Mario 64? I'm sure they'll eventually do it, but at the same time, I don't think they see it as a necessity, because think about it. They remade Thousand Year Door before they remade Paper Mario 64. And you know why they did it, of course. They did it because of the petition. They wanted to ensure fans that they're listening. And I know a lot of people say, Nintendo listening to the fans? Are you kidding me, Paul? Do not get me down that rabbit hole. Because I will list several examples of where Nintendo, yes, they don't listen to their fans much, but when they do, they really listen to the fans. Like the entirety of Breath of the Wild, for example, is basically just a giant love letter to the fans that hated Skyward Sword. I guess haters of Skyward Sword would be more accurate. But like, if you were around during the time of Skyward Sword, you would have known that discourse around Zelda games was not too great. Skyward Sword, it reviewed well, but the fans absolutely hated Skyward Sword. So Breath of the Wild was very much damage control, and it worked. And now, the irony is now people are saying they're tired of the Breath of the Wild formula, and they want them to go back to linear. So we call this the Zelda cycle. Every single time a 3D Zelda game comes out, people say that they want something different. So, for example, when Wind Waker came out, they complained that it was too cartoony. So then Nintendo made Twilight Princess. But then they complained that that game was too gritty and realistic. So then they made Skyward Sword. Then people complained, oh, sorry, I got to respond to this message again. Alrighty, let's see. Alright, let's see what you said while I was responding to that. Majora should dethrone Ganondorf as the series' main antagonist. Oh, yeah. No, I would agree. Majora was way more of a threat. The next Zelda game should be about a main trio, all three playable with unique skills. Okay. Link and Imp are sworn to protect Zelda throughout the whole game. Sounds like Triforce Heroes, but good, if I'm being honest. Because I think I tried playing the demo of Triforce Heroes, and I couldn't even get past the first town because they said something like, "Oh, well, you got to have multiple players for the game to actually be good." So, well, I wasn't a big fan of that. I used to like Four Swords, but then once I played the single player mode, I realized it was pretty bad. Like abysmally bad. But what was I going to say? Uh yeah, I completely forgot. Spoopy scary Zelda game. Yep, me too. Absolutely. I loved the direction that Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask took. And I kind of miss those kinds of games. My favorite Zelda is Tears of the Kingdom. I love the thrill of movement, like the fact that you can like transition from sliding on your shield to a paraglider and get to the top of a tower. True story, by the way. I got to the top of a tower without climbing it, just by shield surfing off the edge of a cliff, jumping out of it, and then paragliding to the top. Wasn't even trying either. I was just minding my own business. I turned the camera, I saw the tower, and I said, I wonder if I can glide over to it. And I did. Just a completely spontaneous, spur of the moment decision. And that's what I love about Tears of the Kingdom is it's a game that thrives on instinctual resource management. So like sure, people have complained that you can cheese the shrines by just sticking a rocket to a shield, but you earned that shield and you earned that rocket because they're in limited supply. Like, do you know how hard it is to get Zonai devices in that game? Sure, it seems easy at first, but you need quite a lot of resources to be able to get that. Maybe not the satanic part, but oh, I absolutely would love a game like that. No, I love Majora's Mask. Um, let's see, where would Majora's Mask rank? So my favorite is Tears of the Kingdom, then Breath of the Wild, then Twilight Princess, then A Link Between Worlds, and then probably Majora's Mask would be next. And then it would be probably Ocarina of Time, Skyward Sword, and probably Wind Waker after that. I'm not a big fan of Wind Waker. And then all the other Zelda games after that I either hate or tolerate. But no, I'm what you would call a very selective Zelda fan. Like I'm surprised this hasn't become a meme. I hope not. I hope not, but I would at least like people to make more jokes about it. In 2024, when I made my top 10 best games of the year list, I had RZ, The Jewel of Faramore, as my number 2 game. And yet, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which came out that same year, didn't get on the list at all because I hated Echoes of Wisdom. The only part I liked about it were the first 15 minutes where you played as Link. But as soon as I took control of Zelda, it was like walking through mud. The game is what I would call it. Like she walked too slow, she jumped too low, the echo AI was terrible. Like the emphasis on puzzle solving over combat was also pretty terrible. Like I liked when you were able to turn into Link, but I wish you would have just stayed as Link because that was way more fun than all the boring echo summoning. Like oh, I hated that. Like going through the side scrolling menu just to get one echo, that was super annoying. And there was no voice acting. Like that was also annoying. Um, I didn't like how like the thrill of movement was completely lost. Like there's something about 2D Zelda games where they're just not as much fun to play. They feel so slow and clunky and puzzle oriented, and I just don't like it. You didn't buy Echoes of Wisdom because Zelda being main character with boring combat. Yeah, no, I think in concept I'd like a Zelda game where Zelda is the main character. Just don't make it like as Echoes of Wisdom. Make it like Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. That was my number 2 game of 2025, and I adored it. I might even go so far. I think I did say this actually. I said that I think Age of Imprisonment has my favorite story in the Zelda series. I know that's a controversial take, but think about it. How many other Zelda games have, okay, I know people will say Zelda games have story, but how many Zelda games have a thoroughly engaging story from start to finish? There's a lot of Zelda games where they might have story moments. Like Ocarina of Time has like when Link first, I don't want to spoil it if anyone hasn't played it, but like it has moments, but there's a lot of downtime between those moments. Whereas in Echoes of Wisdom, or sorry, Age of Imprisonment, not only are you constantly bombarded with cutscenes, but while you're actually playing the levels, the characters are giving exposition about the story. So you're playing the story and you're experiencing it, and it's consistently good. At least in my opinion, it was. I know that there were a lot of people that didn't like the fact that it was canon. I couldn't disagree more. Because I thought Tears of the Kingdom story was way too fragmented, and I didn't like how there was so much that just happened with no explanation, whereas Age of Imprisonment contextualized everything. Plus, I'm also a sucker for Matt Mercer. Like, I'm not gay, but I still like his voice quite a lot. Wind Waker did, but it had like it had that stupid fetch quest near the end that was only barely fixed in the Wii U version. I didn't even finish Wind Waker when it came to Switch 2. I think I got past like the second dungeon and I just said, okay, it's official. I don't like Wind Waker. I'm a Wind Waker hater. I like parts of it. Like, I think the controls are uh, not as good as Twilight Princess's, honestly, but it it was a necessary step for the series to be more willing to be expressive. Because if there's one thing that I always hated about Ocarina of Time, ever since the beginning, because that was the first Zelda game I ever owned, it was that Link was so boring of a character. Like, he just glared the whole time. And he, like, hardly ever emoted. And when he did, like, you didn't really see his face change all that much. And so Wind Waker, like, again, damage control. They said, okay, people think that the N64 didn't do a good job of letting people have facial expressions, so let's show what the GameCube is capable of. So we got, Link making some of the most iconic facial expressions in the whole series. In my opinion, though, Wind Waker went overboard. They had too much cartooniness. So then Twilight Princess came along, and I personally loved Twilight Princess. I'll even defend that opening. If anyone comes at me and says, Paul, Ordon Village was so slow and boring, how can you possibly defend that? Come at me. I dare you. And I swear you'll have a different perspective about it. And then Skyward Sword came along, and I liked it, but not as good as Twilight Princess. And then Breath of the Wild came along, and I was just like, no, this is a Zelda game that I love. Oh, okay, well, you have a great rest of your night, Rasul. I hope I said that right. Thanks a bunch for the engaging discussion. I had a blast. Alrighty, well, this has been great, and I'm still going. That's assuming that my chat indicator icon is accurate, because sometimes it'll say 0 people are here, and then someone will proceed to talk. So I don't know what to believe anymore. But yeah. So while I'm waiting for more people to talk, I think I said everything about Thomas. But just in case there are people watching this after the fact, how many people nowadays will just absolutely refuse to believe that Jesus is real without some kind of proof? It seems like they need this idea that faith just doesn't exist. You just cannot have faith in someone. Like, how do relationships work for those kinds of people? Like, wouldn't you need some kind of a foundation of faith, like faith in the general sense? Like, you'd have to trust that your partner wouldn't cheat on you. You obviously wouldn't be able to like have some kind of certificate to show that your partner is incapable of cheating on you, or like a remote control that you'd like press a button to make the partner cheat. You have to have some kind of unspoken rule that doesn't have any logical grounds in order to be able to trust that partner. So why can't the same be said about religion? Why can't it just be so many people have seen these signs and wonders, and just because it's not logical, what if it is still true? There are plenty of things that are not logical that are still true, like emotions. Emotions aren't logical, but so many people act on their emotions. There are lots of things in this universe that science still hasn't found a rational explanation for. And I think that it's possible that there are some things in the universe that never will have a scientific explanation because God is a different kind of explanation. Because I think most atheists tend to see things in two distinct metrics: either this is logical or this is emotional. I am of the belief that there's a third option, and that's that this is faithful, that it defies both logic and emotion, and that you just simply have to trust that it's real, even if it doesn't feel real, and even if it's completely irrational. And that's what I think Jesus was talking about when he was talking to Thomas, is he said, you literally needed me to show you my hands and my side. You couldn't just believe your friends. You couldn't trust what they were saying because you were just too much of a rational person. Blessed are those who do not need all the rational proof and all the documentation and all the stories. Blessed are those who just say, okay, and decide to believe. And that's what I think is the Bible verse that I'm going to say the next time I'm around atheists who just really have trouble with this concept of going outside of logical or emotional, is that faith is the middle ground that Jesus wants us to come to. But even that I know is not good enough, because there's another Bible verse that talks about how just some people just aren't going to believe no matter what you do. And I've said this in other live streams, so who knows? Maybe there's different people here. So I'll say it again. There's a verse where Jesus talks about the rich man and Lazarus, and how Lazarus ends up going to the part of Hades where Abraham was sent to, which we all know Abraham was a righteous man that came before Jesus. And the rich man was sent into the other part of Hades where he was in torment. Now, here's the thing. Oh, hello, Lodo. Happy Sunday and early birthday. Thank you. College friend's daughter. Very, very nice. I hope she's having a good time as well. But how are you, Lodo? Any big news? Anything you're excited about? I was just saying that there's a story that Jesus tells where the rich man says a whole lot of things that the Protestants and the atheists both really disapprove of. First off, he asks Abraham for intercession when the Protestants believe that you have to go to God alone. So already that's a red flag. Second, he says Father Abraham 3 times in that passage when the Protestants say, call no one on earth your father because you only have but one father. Okay, why didn't Abraham correct him? Why didn't Abraham say, stop calling me father? You only have one father. Why didn't Abraham also say, you can't come to me, you have to go directly to God? What Abraham said instead was, there is a chasm between us. He didn't say there's a chasm between all people. So clearly there are some people on the side of Abraham that can talk to him. And then the third thing that Protestants, especially atheists, seem to just despise is the next thing is the rich man says, why don't you resurrect a dead person and have that person warn my brothers about this place of torment? Now, Abraham doesn't say, no, that's stupid. You got to go to God alone. What he says is, well, they can just use Moses and the prophets. There's so many stories in the Old Testament that they could learn from. And he says, well, they would believe if they saw a resurrection. Abraham says, they wouldn't believe even if they saw the resurrection. They're just too stubborn. So if we put those two verses together, it gets me thinking that as much as I would love to just show the story of doubting Thomas and just say, like, okay, let me take the most hardened atheist in the world, and just say, what if, just for a second, you decided to believe even though you had no proof for it? Because Jesus said, blessed are those. So what if you get some kind of blessing? What if you can get some kind of freebie, but you just don't know it? And then if they still disbelieve, I will say, well, what will it take? Because Abraham says in the Bible that you wouldn't believe even if someone rose from the dead. So it gives me the sense of relief that no matter what I do, some people just aren't going to believe. And I just have to accept that. You've just been having fun with Tomodachi Life? Oh, that's great. That is really great. Oh, that's amazing. I have my rental copy of Tomodachi Life that should be coming anytime now. It shipped on the 15th. So I'm guessing it'll probably come between now and the 24th. So I'm somewhat excited. It'll probably be on the lower end of my best games list if I'm being realistic, because I'm a bit of a stickler for story in my games, but there is a certain charm to being able to have characters from my novel interacting with each other. What kind of Miis do you have on your island? Is it like your own characters? Is it like Harry Potter characters? Like what? And that's cool that a college student taught you about God. And that's another thing that I say to like agnostics and spiritual people is a lot of the people in the Bible that believed in God were just ordinary people that had no education. Like the blind man, for example. Jesus just said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And he said, "Well, who is the Son of Man? And I'll believe in him." And Jesus said, "Well, I'm the Son of Man." He said, "Okay." No questioning, no, well, let me critique the logic behind that. He just said, "Okay." And he decided to believe right then and there. And yet the Pharisees, the ones who read the Bible, or whatever they had besides the Bible back then, they knew everything and they didn't even believe that he was the Son of Man, despite that they read Daniel's prophecies and all the messianic prophecies that talked about who Jesus was. They didn't get it, some random commoner did. She was at rock bottom being homeless, but she turned her life around and even graduated college with honors. The whole time she thanked God for helping her when she was alone. That power of belief was proof enough to me that a God exists. That's beautiful. For me personally, I would say that the reason why I believe God exists, you're probably going to think this is silly. Well, it started out with just my parents told me that God existed. And I just said, okay, I trust that my parents know what they're talking about because they're older than me. They've had life experiences. And as I got older, I studied the faith for myself and I said, okay, this is starting to make more and more sense. And then in 2018, I got miraculously healed on my back and shoulders through Eucharistic adoration right after the priest had said that the woman with hemorrhages just touched Jesus' clothes and that was enough to heal him because she had faith. And I had faith that touching the pieces of cloth under the monstrance would heal me because if Jesus was truly present in the Eucharist, that meant that the pieces of cloth were his clothes. So they would be there for holy relics, like first class relics. And I don't remember if I thought this at the time, but maybe in retrospect, I might have also thought that my parents, they took a trip to Israel one time and they touched their wedding rings to like these holy sites, like the place where Gabriel visited Mary. And I think also the place where he was born, the place where he healed the blind man. And so I thought, maybe if I do the same thing, then I'll be healed. And like 3 seconds later, I was healed. You know the story by now. If you don't, let me know. But if you do know the story, you'll know that it was a very, very, very odd sensation. And I've never felt it before or since. And yeah, I've been able to lift my arms up ever since then. You made Mii's from Persona 3 and 5. Those are the two Persona games I've played. It's almost as if you made it specifically for me. Very nice. Some suggestions. Well, it depends on what you play. Make me in there, like me, like Paul. Try to see if you can replicate my personality. That would be a challenge, I bet. Um, Make Harry Potter characters. That'd be cool. Um, Make some of your friends. Like, I like to encourage creativity. So, like, yes, it's cool that you have me's based on like things that you like. I do too. I'll probably have Mii's of like Futaba if I have the opportunity. But the current three Mii's on my island, I only have the demo right now. I'm still waiting for my rental. I have three characters that I created from my novel. So I like to encourage people like, I don't know, make up your own characters. Make up your imaginary friend. Like show people the power of your mind so that it feels like it's your island, that you are in charge. Oh, good. I'm glad you like my story. Of course, when you call it a story, it makes it sound like I made it up. But people that knew me before the healing could attest that there was definitely a change. Because I remember the very first winter of 2018, my mom asked me to shovel the driveway. And after I was finished, I was just like, okay, cool, I'm done. And she said, what? Every time I asked you to shovel the driveway before then, you were always huffing and puffing and you were leaning against the shovel, like completely out of breath, and you were clutching your back. And yet you acted like hardly anything happened. And I said, yeah, I feel like I can I can shovel a heck of a lot more from here. And so the way I've described it to my friends is, you know how like in the trans movement when women transition into being men, they describe their muscles as being significantly stronger. That is how I felt. Even though I'm not trans, but I felt like I was in that moment because I felt like my muscles feel like I've just been working out for an entire year and I can shovel so much more snow than I could before. Ooh, you'll make me. Hey, if you do make me, if you have some kind of like a capture card or a camera or something, please, please, please send it to me somehow. My email address is in my channel about section. I'm not shy about sharing my email address, so I'll just put it here actually. Yeah, just email me there. Um, or just let me know in a comment one way or another. Please let me know. That is cool. No, that's okay. No, that's okay. That was just me that was just me being silly. I know what you meant. I know you didn't mean it was that kind of a story. But that's not even the only miraculous experience I have had. And as if you think my miraculous experiences are something else, you should hear the ones my sister has witnessed. They make mine look like a fairy tale. And yet, I know some agnostics who still don't believe, even after all that. Although, I do have one friend of mine who is an atheist, and she believed that my miraculous healing was the real deal. So, okay, half a victory. Okay, cool. Thank you. Which custom shirt do I want on my me? Something blue and something related to pizza because my favorite color is blue. And obviously, I really like pizza. I'm even getting some for my birthday. So yeah, just pizza related and blue related. Just make sure I have long brown hair, um, clean shaven, and yeah, that's about it. I don't care if I'm slightly inaccurate besides that. Like, if you want to go ahead and make me have a unibrow to show what I would ideally like to look like if my hair would grow better around this region, then sure, go for it. I think I technically have like some peach fuzz around here, but people don't notice it, unfortunately, because I would have loved to have a unibrow. I've wanted a unibrow ever since, let me think, when was it? I think it was around like 2013 that I started really wanting one. Just never happened. Do you know your birthday plans now? Um, I don't actually. That email or that message that I had to respond to was saying that a friend of mine didn't have enough time to hang out with me on my birthday, so he said, "You spend time with your loved ones, we'll spend time together the next day." Oh, I love Chiaki. She's my favorite character in Goodbye Despair. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with her in the remake. Now, I have said in the past that I don't want any speculation on the remake just because, just in case there are people that haven't played the original, I don't want them to think that our speculation is spoiling stuff. Like, let me give you a hypothetical here to show you what I mean. Let's say that someone says, "Oh, I think that maybe X will die." Well, one would logically assume that in the original Goodbye Despair, X lived. So I wouldn't want people to make those kinds of logical leaps. Like, for all we know, maybe there will be someone who's a murderer in both the new and the old scenario, but we don't know that for sure. But I think most people are going to assume that it's going to be all new because this is Kodaka we're talking about. He likes to surprise people. He's probably going to make us uncomfortable at one point. Maybe he'll take a beloved character and make that character a murderer. I don't know, but I don't allow speculation here because I don't want people to be spoiled of the original scenario. Hope that makes sense. Yes, I totally agree, Lodo. I am so happy the original voice actors are back. In fact, I'm going to mention something that I bet a lot of you are going to be super happy about. And that's that I got to meet Todd Haberkorn at Comic-Con last year. And um, he was one of my favorite celebrities to ever meet, in my opinion, because he was so outgoing, very easy to keep conversation going. Like, he struck me as the kind of person that would just show up in my live stream one day and say, "Hey, Paul, what's up?" Like, that kind of personality. And so I told him that I really liked the characters that he voiced in Danganronpa. And I asked him how was he able to make Taro's and Korekyo's voices distinct. And he said it really helped that he did audiobooks before he was an actor. And so that helped him to know how to like change up his voice enough. And then he said something rather interesting. He said, "I think you'll be happy to know that I will be voicing in a game that should be coming to a Nintendo system that I think you'll like." And that's all he would say. The only thing he would say about it was, "It should be coming to a Nintendo system and I think you'll like it." And so that got, because this was May of 2025, mind you. So that got me thinking, what could he possibly be talking about? Danganronpa's over, isn't it? But then they announced 2 games that had Todd Haberkorn in it that I really liked. And you can probably guess which one I think he was talking about. And those games were Kirby Air Ride and Danganronpa 2x2. Something tells me he probably wasn't referring to Kirby Air Ride because he was only the narrator. I think he was talking about Danganronpa 2x2, but he was still in the NDA disclosure. But if I ever do end up reviewing the game, which I probably will, I will say I got tipped off by Todd Haberkorn. Not entirely, but somewhat. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, we want to make sure we're not spoiled. Did I like the ending of V3? I loved the ending of V3. I was laughing hysterically the entire time because I was anticipating how everyone else would feel about it. And I was like, oh, everyone's going to hate this, but I am just in seventh heaven because I love this kind of humor. And this is just like the perfect twist. And it recontextualized everything that I thought about the previous Danganronpa games, and then it retroactively made them better. And then I retroactively I looked at how people reacted to certain twists, and I said, well, now that you have the context of the ending of V3, your reaction doesn't make as much sense. And then they would get mad at me for it and say, no, Paul, I refuse to accept that Danganronpa V3 is canon, which technically it's not, but I say technically because there's an asterisk to it. So in Japanese, Danganronpa V3's name is something along the lines of New Danganronpa V3, Another School Semester Killing, or something like that. And the creator said in an interview that the reason he called it that was because he wanted people to have the impression that this was in an alternate timeline. So I think he did that because he wanted fans of the original to not feel like Danganronpa V3 was insulting those other people. So technically, you could say that Trigger Happy Havoc, and Goodbye Despair are canon in one universe, and then there's another universe where Trigger Happy Havoc, Goodbye Despair, and V3 are all like part of the same thing. And again, I'm being vague on purpose, but yeah, no, I don't think he ever meant for Killing Harmony to actually be a sequel to those games, sort of. Again, if you know what I'm talking about. An Ultimate Detective, yeah. Yeah, no, I really liked the subversion of all the tropes in Danganronpa V3. Heck, I'm a weirdo. I'm the type of guy that I like subverting expectations. I like being the oddball. I like being the contrarian. So when Danganronpa V3 did a lot of different stuff, which I won't spoil, I definitely was just like, okay, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued. Now, I did not like most of the characters in Danganronpa V3. That was my biggest reason why I thought it wasn't as good as Goodbye Despair. But the characters that I did like, I really liked. Like, I love Shuichi. I think he's a very underrated character. I loved Kaede. I really liked. Like, I know a lot of people say, yay, a female protagonist. That's not new to Danganronpa. Ultra Despair Girls had a female protagonist. What I liked about Kaede is that she was a subversion to the trope of the protagonists of Danganronpa. Because, like, you kind of felt like Hajime and Makoto were kind of self-insert characters. Like, yes, Hajime was the skeptic and Makoto was the obsessive optimist. But Kaede felt like she had an agenda outside of the player that made it feel like I wasn't controlling her. And that's what I liked about her is she felt like she had her own agency and her own established personality that was not something that I made her do. And as a result, she is, in my opinion, my favorite protagonist in the Danganronpa series. Unless you count Takumi in 100 Line Last Defense Academy, if you consider that an unofficial Danganronpa. Although, I will say that I think Takumi's motivations can be pretty skewed depending on which ending you get. Like, he does some weird things in some of the endings. Which characters didn't I like? Shuichi was annoying but really grew on me at the end. Yeah. Well, I've always been a sucker for detective characters, so I liked Shuichi pretty much from the beginning. And he just got better as it progressed. Yeah? No? I like. Okay, let me tell you the characters I did like. And then by process of elimination, you can just say, okay, Paul hated everyone else. I liked Kaede quite a lot. I loved Shuichi. Maki was alright. She was kind of like she had a good progression of her character, but before that progression, she was kind of just kind of there. Like there wasn't really much to her. Um, I liked Kokichi quite a lot. Like Kokichi was the inspiration for if you ever go on Miss Peggle's channel and you notice that I can like sometimes appear like I'm being very mean to her. It's me pretending to be Kokichi because I really like his mischievous side. But then when you learn more about him, there's so much hidden depth to his character that I really like. And I also just like this idea that Kokichi calls out the nonsense in that game that everyone else is too polite to say. Like, you know, when Sumugi makes a reference to a game no one's heard of, he says, wow, you must be a hardcore nerd. And I'm thinking, that's how my brain works too, is I like to call out absurdities. And so it felt like Kokichi was like, he was saying a lot of the things that I would normally say to my friends of just like, "Oh, wow, yeah, you must be some kind of nerd," or something like that. I think I'd be a lot more polite than Kokichi, but he did kinda remind me of, like, a demented version of me. Uh, Gonta was alright, I guess, like, it was kind of annoying that he kept saying the same things over and over again, like, "Gonta's not smart," and that was about it, really, like, just a very naive guy that kept telling everyone that he wasn't smart. So like, and then he kept telling everyone that he was a gentleman. It just got old. Yeah, that's it. Everyone else I didn't like. If you want to know more about why I didn't like, we will be here all day. But if you want to hear it, I'm willing to complain like heck for everyone else. But yeah, Killing Harmony had by far my least favorite set of characters in the whole series. Like, I think my favorite overall cast was the one in probably Trigger Happy Havoc. I didn't like. Are you kidding me? Angie was insufferable. Like she was so selfish, and yet she would claim that she was always doing it for the will of Atua. So she was like the stereotype of like the Christian that does these horrible things and claims that God told him or her to do it. And it just, like, I wasn't thinking that at the time I was playing it, but I was thinking, like, yeah, this girl is just being selfish, but claiming it's all for Atua. And even if she wasn't, just the fact that that was all there was to her. Like, every single thing she said was, it was Atua. It was Atua's will. Like, it's almost as if she didn't know how to say a sentence without saying Atua in it, or like something akin to her. Tanka was annoying because she was like very anti-men, and like I get if you're lesbian, like you can't help who you're attracted to, but to actually show hatred to men, I thought that that was just annoying. And she was just very demeaning of men, making like all these assumptions about men's sexuality and thinking that they were all perverts and like that. Um, uh, I also just didn't like how Tenko was written, how she like tended to over glorify certain female characters just because she was a lesbian. Although near the end she started having her doubts, so I will give her credit for that. Yeah, I do think there was a missed opportunity with Angie in you know which chapter that I would have loved to see fleshed out, but then again, that's Danganronpa for you. It has a pattern of certain points of the game are just missed opportunities. All three games had that moment that I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Um, I didn't like Kaito because he was way too forceful. Like, he strikes me as the kind of guy that if we were to hang out in person, he would like drag me to all these concerts and all these like foreign restaurants and just be like, dude, you got to get outside your comfort zone and do more. And I just, yeah, I don't like people like that who are just very pushy and in your face about everything. And the fact that he was so stubborn, like he nearly ruined one of the class trials because of his stubbornness. And he would have gotten everyone killed if it weren't for the fact that Shuichi was level headed enough to use logic and deduction. The only thing I liked about Tenko was the face. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Um, Let me make sure I'm not missing anyone. Uh, oh, Himiko. Yeah, I didn't like Himiko because she kept bringing up magic, but yet the same joke kept overplaying. Like, okay, we get that you claim that you're a magician, but you're actually not. We get that you're lazy. Can you show any kind of development? And admittedly, there is one point where she shows some development, but like by then, she just becomes such a boring character. Like, and I don't want to say what she does, but it just felt like it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like change for the sake of the writers realized that they were running out of magician jokes. So they said, well, we'll just have Himiko tell different jokes because we don't want the audience to completely dismiss her. She did say a couple of funny one liners, though. I will give her that. Um, Her tendency to call out the absurd less frequently than Kokichi was pretty funny, and some of their interactions were cute. Like, whenever she and Kokichi were together, I thought that was like probably the only thing she did that I liked was whenever the two of them were arguing. Um, what is that maid's name? Those Japanese names, they always mix me up. Whatever the ultimate maid's name was. What I didn't like about her was the only trait she really had about her for most of the game was that she was friendly. Like, it felt like she had no backbone and no like nothing else to her. She just all she wanted to do was serve. It didn't seem like there was even the slightest bit of nuance. And then when you did get nuance, it was like they were making fun of her almost. Um, let's see, who else am I missing? Oh, Ryoma. Yeah, he was just depressing. Like, um, I didn't really understand why he was depressed. And as someone who's an insufferable optimist, I just cannot stand being around like I I don't want to say I can't stand being around depressed people, because I have depressed friends. I can't stand people who are unwilling to do something about it. And Ryoma seemed like the kind of guy that, like, if someone tried to kill him, he wouldn't fight back. And that just, like, coming off of people like Makoto in Trigger Happy Havoc, where, again, the guy is an insufferable optimist, like, it seemed like he was the antithesis of Makoto. And then, there's one more. Oh, Rantaro. There just wasn't enough to him. Like, he was just such a blank slate character that we didn't really have enough to go off of with him. Yeah, Ryoma's character design was pretty neat. Like, you don't really see guys that short with that deep of a voice. So I would say that was a nice subversion. Let's see if I'm missing anyone. Miyu. I think it's pretty obvious why I don't like Miyu. Just too much of a potty mouth, and really there's almost nothing redeeming about her whatsoever. And also she's a hypocrite. Like, she'll insult all these other people, but then when she's insulted, she takes it so badly. How did I feel about Shoma? I will admit his self-deprecating was annoying at first, but what made it funnier as the game went along is as the endings got more absurd, Shoma's self-deprecating humor would, like, it would match the absurdity of the ending, and that's what would make it funny. Like, I don't want to spoil it because, like, 99 of the 100 endings come after the credits. So I'll just say that, like, let's make a hypothetical. Let's say that there's an ending where everyone gets turned into frogs. Like, Shoma might say something like, I'm so useless that even the princess wouldn't want to kiss me. You know, like, he's making a joke about the stereotype of, like, you know, frogs are turned into humans. Like, that kind of stuff is what made him funny. Whereas in V3, it didn't feel like the characters were being funny because of the situation. It felt like they were just being annoying. Like, in fact, I have, like, a whole bunch of screenshots of funny things that were said in V3, and I don't think a single one of them was from Kaito, to put that into perspective. I think the only one from Miyu was when she said genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I just thought that was pretty funny. Because I was like, oh, so you're saying sweating a lot is what makes you a genius. Okay, girl, get some deodorant. I do really like the line where, oh, Sumugi, I forgot to talk about her. I guess I like how she, like, references, like, odd things that no one's heard of. Like, at one point, get this. At one point, she references Xenoblade Chronicles X. How many people would have, like, at the time, the definitive edition wasn't out. So, Xenoblade Chronicles X, you know, since it was on the Wii U, and it came out the same year as Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. So, the part where she referenced Xenoblade Chronicles X was when Mia was introducing Kaede to the drones. You know, the drone was like this flying robot that could see all over that. And, or no, she said it was a, or no, she said it's a prone. And then Sumugi said, "Oh, well, if it's a prone, it would be trying to take over the Ganglion Alliance to destroy humanity." And I got far enough in Xenoblade X to know exactly what she's talking about. And then Kaede responds with, "What the heck is she talking about?" Because again, they're making fun of the fact that no one played Xenoblade Chronicles X. No one has a clue what that game even is. Even, like, if you talk about, like, among Xenoblade fans, like, I'm pretty sure X was, like, the worst selling game in the franchise. But yeah, no, I do know what she's talking about, and it is a funny joke in context, but even outside of context, like, you would think a first-party Nintendo game wouldn't be considered a nerd moment of, like, something that no one has ever heard of. But once Sumugi gets her development, all of a sudden I was like, okay, Now I really love this girl. Oh, and then there's Kibo. I almost forgot about him. Yeah, Kibo just keeps mentioning that he's a robot over and over again, and that got annoying. Um, and then as he got development, it felt like he was just Makoto 2.0 and not much more. And I was like, I don't want Makoto 2.0. I want something different. So yeah, a robot acting robotic. Not cool. So yes, in summary, the characters that I liked were Kokichi, Shuichi, Kaede, and sort of Maki, I guess. And everyone else I didn't like. So yeah, there's my unpopular opinions there. But in Goodbye Despair, the characters that I liked were, I really like Chiaki. She's my favorite. I really like the stereotype of like she's a gamer girl, but she's like also logical, which I really appreciate because like let's be honest, she carries most of the class trials by herself. I feel like she could have easily been the main character with how like her hunches ended up being correct more often than not. You liked Angie and Himiko. Interesting. What did you like about them? I liked Hajime. Um, I thought he was a nice contrast to Makoto, how he was like so skeptical of everything. And then again, once you get development, it's really nice how he reacts to that compared to like when Makoto was faced with a similar situation. Um, I did not like Mikan. I could not stand Mikan. Um, every time Jevil would make shipping jokes about her, I would always be like, no, no, we're not going there. We are not going there. Um, Fuyuhiko, I really liked. I thought he had some of the best development in the entire series. Peko, Peko was all right, I guess. Um, I would say the scene where she there's a certain scene that she's in that went on for way too long that I wish was cut. But for the most part, I could really relate to a lot of her struggles because people have called me like a people have called me a goody two shoes and a robot who like follows the rules without questioning them, and I could really relate to that idea of like she had someone that she was devoted to and did like whatever that person asked because she's just like, I have no will of my own because I'm loyal to my friends. Like I could really relate to that a lot because I am the type of guy that typically will like go above and beyond for my friends, almost to like um, maybe possibly borderline insane levels. So I feel like maybe if I were in that situation, maybe I would have acted like Peko. Maybe I don't know. Um, I thought Mahiro was all right. I think the fact that she no, yeah, I think she was pretty all right, all things considered. Um, Kyoko, I feel like was underutilized, but I liked what they were trying to go for with her. I have my ideas of how she's going to turn out in the remake, but those ideas are 100% based on developer interviews, not by anything in the games themselves. So, if my gut turns out to be correct, that'll be amazing because my gut is usually wrong on these things. I'm the type of guy that I typically do not trust my gut for pretty much anything. Like I'm a very realistic, factual person. The only times I ever trust my gut are when it comes to when I'm pretty certain that I've heard God's voice. Like typically whenever I listen to that voice and I'm like I'm pretty sure that's God talking, it ends up working out for the better. Like there was that time that I heard that voice from over my left shoulder that said, go and talk to a group of more than 2 people at this conference. And when I listened to the voice, it got me out of depression. There was a voice that said, I need you to go on that mission trip because there's a girl that needs you. That girl, I'm pretty sure she got out of depression pretty shortly after that too. And pretty sure there was one more time he spoke to me. There was my first mission trip. I felt him strongly encouraging me to go and sit with 12 girls. I was very squeamish back then. And I was like, no. He said, yes. And there was just this constant no, yes, no, yes. I finally said, okay, okay, I'll do it. And that ended up changing my life. And then I stopped being a sexist moron. Because before then, I hated girls with a passion. But now most of my best friends are girls. And I love being around them. In fact, I would say that I tend to understand girls more than I understand guys. Like, I have guy friends, don't get me wrong. But it's harder to hang out with them because I feel like the things they struggle with just don't affect me to the same level. Whereas at least with girls, like, sure, I might not be able to relate to some of their physical struggles, but even then, I feel like I can sort of relate because I went through Lyme disease. And um, I was talking to a pregnant woman one time about what I went through with Lyme disease, and she literally said, "Oh my gosh, Paul, that sounds like a menstrual period." So I was like, when a pregnant woman says that, you know you struck gold. Have I always been a gamer? No, I have not. I started gaming when I was around, I don't like saying my age on here, but I will say what my first video game was. It was Putt Putt Joins the Parade. And after that, I played games for quite a while. And then my mom thought I was getting addicted, so she gave away my Nintendo 64. And then I convinced her years later to get it back. And then I stayed a gamer ever since then. That's why I understand girls a lot, is because I used to hate them. So I made an effort to say, I'm going to be a reformed person and I'm going to atone for my mistakes. And I'm going to understand girls so well that there's going to come a day when girls say that I understand them more than they understand themselves. And that ended up coming true. I do actually have a friend of mine who, she was asking me, we were having a discussion about anatomy. And I said something along the lines of, like, what does it feel like to be a girl? And she said, Paul, I think at this point you know more about my body than I do because you're just so knowledgeable about anatomy. Why did I hate them so much? Ooh, this is a long story. Let me see if I can make it short. Bullying, sexual abuse, isolation, general misunderstanding, not good sex education. So I thought that guys were way worse off during puberty. Not a whole lot of girls at my school, so not a whole lot of time to get to know the nuance to them. By the time I did start getting to know girls, it was like when I was in high school, and high school's not a good place to get to know girls. It's one of the worst places to get to know them, in my opinion. That's why I hardly talk to any of them anymore from high school. I think of all the girls that I met in high school, I think there's only like 3 that I still talk to regularly, and one of them is my sister-in-law, so that definitely helps. But yeah, lots and lots and lots of extreme, very extreme trauma that happened at the hands of women. Oh, also, there was an adult in my life that there was an adult in my life that did something very inappropriate with my body that was one of many catalysts that got me to be afraid of the water. I don't share that story with too many people, but the people I have shared that story with have said, "Paul, it's no wonder why you were so afraid of the water and so afraid of women for so long. If an adult did that to me when I was a kid, I would have been way worse off." So they said, you had a lot of strength for not being as bad as most people were in that situation. Oh, thank you, Lodo. I really appreciate that. Yeah, now most people are pretty surprised that I ever was that sexist. But it was a very like people could tell that that mission trip really changed me. Like I'm pretty sure every girl in the youth group knew that I had A passed. I don't think they knew all the details because even I didn't know all the details. Some of them I had blocked from my memory. They were so traumatic. And it took me a long time to actually like recall those memories, but um there was a moment on that mission trip where one of the girls from another youth group got on the stage when they were asked like how did you see God throughout this weekend, and she said, I see God every time I talk to Paul. Literally every single girl in my youth group looked in my direction and they all said, what? And then the girl next to me, I remember her name's Rachel, she's one of the few girls from high school I still talk to. She said, oh my gosh, Paul, she said that she saw God in you. See, girls are not that bad. And I just remember being so honored by that because, like, I don't think that would have ever happened before that. It just goes to show that my very first mission trip was, I'm pretty sure it was miraculous. And again, if you guys want to hear the perspective of one of the girls that was on that trip, I do have a video called Monica's Perspectives on My First Mission Trip. She was one of the two girls that came and sat by me on Taco Tuesday, and it was thanks to her and that other girl that started the mindset of me getting out of my sexism. So, you've heard me tell the story pretty much since the beginning of this channel, but you probably haven't heard her tell the story. So I would encourage you, like, if you want to know, like, the person behind what started Paul's journey, like, go and watch that video. If you don't, I will have a clip of it in my best memories of 2026 video of, because the interview is like 30 minutes long and it's Monica explaining like everything about the mission trip, like, oh, this happened and here's my work team. And I specifically not cut out as in I deleted it from the video, I segmented that part for the best memories video where she explains like, yeah, this is what encouraged me to sit by Paul and this is how I felt about the event. And she's a very different person from me, so I'm like a detail oriented freak where like I'm all about, like, I remember a lot of concrete details. Sorry, I didn't mean to ignore your comment. Thank you for saying my reasons are valid. Yeah, no, my therapist has said like, oh my gosh, Paul, you've actually she said your responses were quite mature compared to how most people would have reacted to that stuff. But anyway, yeah, like she's more of an overview type of person, like, yeah, I got a lot out of the overall message of the camp. Or I'm the type of person that would say like, yeah, so the carpet was gray and there was a lot of dark green in the grass, and there was this path that had the Stations of the Cross that I later found out I wasn't supposed to walk on, and we were at the Bishop Lane Retreat Center in Rockford, Illinois, and the weather was 100 degrees one day, and there was a slanted tree that I could just walk up instead of climbing, and I sat at the same table at every meal, which was the end table of the second table from the upper right corner of the room. I guess it would be this side if it were me facing it. Like, and that's just some of the details. She hardly remembered anything. Like, she didn't remember where it was, where we stayed. She didn't even remember any of the stage activities, which I was like, how the heck can you forget the stage activities? Those were so iconic. Like the Carpenter Commando slogan. Like, I was like, you can't tell me you forgot the Carpenter Commando. She's like, yeah, I don't remember anything. Which I find so funny. Because, like, sure, I may not remember every single thing that happened on the stage, but let's see, what are some of the things I do remember? I remember there was a speaker that spoke about how Jesus' death and resurrection was strawberries, sour cream, and brown sugar. The band we had that year was Popple, which was a two-man band that played guitar hip hop, and they also had kazoos, which I thought was just cool. Like, how many people do hip hop with an acoustic guitar? They also played we had a music CD, so this isn't hard to remember. They played a song all about the Contra code, which I later found out isn't the actual Contra code. They accidentally sang one of the songs at Mass too soon, and the priest told them off for it. He said, "We're supposed to say the Lamb of God at this point." And then he said, "Young people nowadays, they just want to get through the Mass so quickly." He was a very snarky priest. And then I also remember I left one of my t-shirts on that mission trip. It was a March for Life t-shirt. I remember there was a girl in my work team named Emily, and she really liked Disney movies. And so anytime the kids were like watching, say, The Lion King, she would be right there with them. Because we were our work team was tasked with working at a daycare center. And it was called Maya's House. And it was for kids aged, I believe it was 0 through 8. And we were just asked to play with the kids for part of the time. And then the rest of the day, we'd go to a gym, not the gym. And we would paint and prime a wall. And it was such an involved project that we had another team work on it while we were babysitting so that we could do double duty. And I'm pretty sure I didn't know a single thing about what I was supposed to be doing. So I just kind of relied on just watching what everyone else was doing and just following along. And like I said, those are just some of the details. But you ask her what she remembered from the trip. Again, lots of overviews. Lots of just a general, like, big picture type of way of seeing things. And I could say an overview of the camp, but it's not as much fun. Like, I could theoretically say something along the lines of, well, I learned not to hate girls. I learned that mission trips weren't terrible. And I learned that these kinds of experiences change you for the better. But see how it took me a while to remember that, whereas like the details were effortless? She's the other way around. When is my next trip? That's a tough question. Because I'm currently trying to work through an opportunity to go to the Catholic Creators Conference. It's just really hard to plan the logistics behind that, which, again, I don't want to get into, but I'm going to have to do some heavy-duty coordinating. But yes, I did meet up with Esabelle and her sister, which, you can see the video all about it. But I didn't go to visit her. She came to visit me. Because the inn that I booked for her was like 10 minutes away from my house by walking distance. So it was super easy to just walk to the hotel. I do want to go to Comic-Con sometime in May. I just don't know if that'll happen because, again, got to sort things out because things are changing. I would like to go to Vacation Bible School in July. Will I cosplay if I go? I would like to. I just don't know if it'll be comfortable. Because I was thinking I would like to cosplay as Link. But, like, everyone knows Link from his Tears of the Kingdom getup, which has part of his chest exposed. And I normally don't like going to places shirtless without some kind of consent. Like if I'm at a pool, I figure that that's automatically consent because that's, like, expected of guys to not wear shirts at the pool. But, like, at a comic convention, people might not want to see that. There might be people there that don't like cosplays in general. And they might see that as like, I didn't want to see that much of your body. I mean, there are people out there that really don't like certain cosplays that are like tight or revealing. Plus, Link also wears a skirt, and I don't like wearing skirts. Ooh. If I did that, I'd want the long hair to go with it. And Link's hair is shorter when he has a green tunic. See, the other thing about me is that I have no artistic ability. Like, none. If you want to know how good I draw, just look at my review of Century of Anticipation. Like, that game's art style, that's about how good I can draw. But Speaking of Century of Anticipation, this is not breaking an NDA because it's a public comment, so you can go and verify that. But the developer of Century of Anticipation actually saw my review. And again, you can verify it. It's right there in the comments. And he said, Paul, you explained the game better than even I could. And then he proceeded to say that he would send me early access whenever his next game came out. So, not the first time I've been given a review code. The first time I've ever been given a review code was, I'd like to say, in 2022, when Luke Vincent gave me a copy of Automaton Lung. No, I'm not doxing him. That is the name of the developer. You can, again, look it up. That's what it says on the box. I didn't end up reviewing it because I couldn't beat it, because that's my review criteria, is always got to beat it. I don't want snap judgment reviews. But I have been in talks with quite a lot of indie developers, and I can promise you that I do have a review code that is guaranteed. Now, originally, the developer said he'd give me one for Steam, but then I realized, Steam doesn't really work that well on my computer. So I said, well, I'd like to play your game on Steam. I just don't think it's going to work. So then he proceeded to say, well, if it ever comes on Switch, I'll give you a review key. I don't think at this point he wants me to reveal the game or who he is. So I didn't technically sign an NDA. I just think that's the polite thing to do, is if you're given early access before the public, don't go blabbing about it. But I will say that whatever this game is, it's the game I'm the most excited for out of any game coming out this year. Even more than Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, even more than Danganronpa 2x2, even more than Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. Those are my big three this year, by the way. Just in case anyone was wondering. If you're wondering what order those are in, then I would have to say first is unannounced game that I'm not allowed to talk about. Second is Danganronpa 2x2. You might be surprised why Fire Emblem isn't up there, and it's because Danganronpa 2x2 just has such a unique premise. It's a remake of the original game, and then it's a reimagining of the original game on the same cartridge. How many games do that? Like, just imagine if Final Fantasy VII did that. Oh wait, it did. If you had an early purchase edition on the Switch 2, you could get a copy of Final Fantasy VII, but not on the same card. And then third is Fire Emblem, because I'm a diehard Fire Emblem fan. Like, I have a Byleth amiibo. I have hardly any other amiibos. And then fourth is Professor Layton in the New World of Steam, because prior to Breath of the Wild, my favorite video game is Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. I think that game is severely underrated, and the people that hated that game, I can see where they're coming from, but I think most of that hate comes from the fact that they are disappointed with how it ended. I am the type of person that I am a journey over the destination kind of guy. That's why I tend to, whenever I replay Radiant Dawn, I tend to get the most excited during the middle part as opposed to the ending, because I like all the setups and I like all the like what will happen next chapter. Ooh, that's such a big reveal. Like, the anticipation would often be what got me through it. And then when I would finally find out the reveal, I'd be slightly disappointed because I'd be like, man, I wanted that game to last forever. It's how I felt with Deathly Hallows too. Like, I was sad when it was over because I liked the journey. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad you think Danganronpa 2 is exciting. I don't think you would agree with me with unannounced game that I'm excited for. But if you know me, you would probably be like, yeah, I can see why Paul would be more excited about that than Fire Emblem. Yeah, that is a shame you couldn't get into those games. Obviously, there are plenty of Phoenix Wright games on the Switch. In fact, every Ace Attorney game except for Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright is on the Switch. So there's quite the back catalog. Professor Layton, on the other hand, there's only one of his games on the Switch, and it's one of his worst ones, in my opinion. So, good luck getting a hold of his back catalog. But Ace Attorney, oof. Ace Attorney fans are in seventh heaven right now, and that's speaking as an Ace Attorney fan. The Ace Attorney trilogy recently got an update. I think it was like in December of 2025 that like made the game up to the standards of like other Ace Attorney collections. We got both great Ace Attorney games complete with beta music, behind the scenes English voice acting, even a cameo with Phoenix Wright at one point. Then there's the Apollo Justice trilogy, and then there's the Ace Attorney Investigations, which, like I said, we now have every Ace Attorney game on the Switch except for Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. Oh, yes, I would love a Layton collection, especially because I haven't even played all the Layton games. I've never played Last Spectre. I don't think I've ever played Diabolical Box either. I played a little bit of Curious Village, but it was way too hard for me, so I ended up skipping it. The only Layton games I've actually played all the way through are Unwound Future, Miracle Mask, Azran Legacy, both versions of Layton's Mystery Journey, and Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright. All the other ones were either too hard or I never played them. But I do plan on playing New World of Steam. Which one is the girl detective? That is Layton's Mystery Journey, Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy. Supposedly, she is Professor Layton's daughter. But here's the thing. If you know your Layton lore, that's going to seem a bit problematic. And that's all I'll say, so that I don't give spoilers. But just like, since when did Professor Layton have a daughter? Again, if you know, you know. And unfortunately, my biggest problem with Layton's Mystery Journey is they never end up answering that question. They just give this kind of riddle of like, is she Professor Layton's daughter or isn't she? And then the game ends. Oh no. That game was terrible. Like, they made a remaster on the Switch, which was, it was better, but it didn't fix the narrative problems. Like, it fixed the puzzles, which, you know, the biggest complaint that game got was they said it had terrible puzzles because the person who designed the puzzles in the previous Layton games passed away, and boy, could fans tell that they were like not only not up to that quality, but they were like poorly explained and just really, really bad puzzles. And so when the remake came out on the Switch, if you can call it a remake, because they hardly changed anything, they redesigned and rewrote the puzzles so that they were easier to understand. And I ended up being able to beat the remake without too much help. Whereas in the original, it was an absolute nightmare. If you were to watch my original review, which I hope you don't, it's terrible. But if you were to, I had almost no nice things to say about it besides the music. The voice acting was just, it was weird. Like, what people actually talk like that in real life? It just sounded like they weren't even real people. And the whole like millionaires conspiracy part of it, literally, there's no build up to that. Like, the rest of the game is so disjointed because it's all like case by case base. You know, the previous Layton games, it's all like one interconnected story. But the case that has the millionaires conspiracy is the final case of the game, but none of the other cases legitimately connect to it in a way that makes it seem like it was foreshadowing. Like, sure, there are characters from the other cases in it, but like the twist villain, there's no buildup. He just kind of appears. And then like the motivation for the villains, like everything is all just info dumped to you at the very end of the game, again with no sense of foreshadowing or like maybe a line of dialogue that like you reread it and in context you're like, oh, that makes sense. No, I played the game twice and I was like, there's nothing. It's almost as if the millionaire's conspiracy thing was an afterthought. They said this game is just so boring, we need a climactic finale. Let's just shoehorn in this villain with no buildup. And get this, the worst part, they didn't even resolve all of the unanswered questions. Like, there's a talking dog at the beginning that loses his memory. They never answer how the dog can talk or what happened to his memory. And they never answered the biggest question is, did Professor Layton actually have a daughter or didn't he? They left that as a cliffhanger as well. And probably because the game wasn't received very well, they decided, yeah, we're just going to abandon that whole plot line. From what I heard, they resolved it in an anime, but like, why wouldn't you communicate that to the player? I didn't find out that until years after the fact. But I hate anime, so I'm certainly not going to be watching it. Let's just say that after I watched Persona 5, the animation, it did not do any favors on my previously established thoughts on anime. So, just as a heads up, guys, I still haven't had dinner yet, so I'm going to end the stream in 11 minutes. Actually, let me write that down just in case some people show up late. Ending the stream at 7 p.m. EST. So get in your burning questions ASAP or drop them in the comments after the video is uploaded. All right. Yeah, no, that's the main reason I don't like anime is it's so lazy. Like, you watch like Persona 5, even if you just play the game Persona 5 and not the anime, like the run cycles just feel like it's only 2 frames just going like you're playing a Game and Watch game. And usually like the facial expressions are just like all over the place. And then you also look at like Disney films, like The Lion King and Aladdin, where like every frame of animation feels so meticulously handcrafted. Like Aladdin does so much as blink his eyes, and you can tell that that blinking animation never appears again for the rest of the film. But yet there's so much reused in anime, and then like there are so many tropes. Like, okay, you've seen one anime, there's another anime that's probably going to have this in it. There's a certain character that you really like. Well, there's probably 80 other characters like it. It feels like there's too many corners cut. But people like those corners being cut, so they decided to make it like a whole subgenre. Unless the anime is from the 80s and 90s where the animation was given a better budget, I haven't watched any from the 80s or 90s, so I wouldn't know. But interesting to know that people got lazier over time. Yeah, exactly. Like, I was watching Death Note, and I loved Death Note, but I hated the animation. Like, there's a scene where they're in a police office, and they're supposed to be panicking, but yet the characters aren't even moving. They're literally standing stock still, and then when the cop is talking, he's got his face stuck in this glare, and he just says, "We must do all that we can to ensure that Kira does not do any more damage." There's, like, no other movement on his face. And it took me out of the experience, if I'm being honest. Like, I've seen indie developers that do better than these big budget anime studios. Like, I would say Undertale. Undertale, of all games, I would say has better animation than most anime. And that's saying something. Whew, I'm really tired all of a sudden. So hopefully I can last for another 8 minutes so it doesn't feel like I get too exhausted. And then just like I said, I don't like trends. I don't like I should go eat now. If that's going to make you feel better, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Yeah, I think I will. All right. Well, this stream was it was fun to talk to you guys, but at the same time, like, I'm surprised that only one person really talked at a time. Like, you would think there'd be a lot more multitasking, but hey, I had fun. So before I go, let's thank everyone that came here. Oh yeah, there will be more streams. I'm going to be the world's longest running YouTuber, so I will not do a map pat unless I'm like literally put on a hospital bed or I drop dead. So pray that that doesn't happen anytime in the near future. So thank you to Low. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. My scroll bar wasn't working for a minute there. Thank you very much, Loto, because it was just you talking for quite a while. I'm not mad. Just a figure of speech. Rasul said to emphasize that last syllable. John Paul was here for a while, and Timon, sorry. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Again, just in case you see this late and you don't see the pinned message, if you're going to wish me a happy birthday, please make it creative. I am so sick and tired of those AI-generated birthday wishes that are just like, you can tell that you didn't actually make it. Just be creative, will ya? Even if you have to do something like, I hope that you have lots of pizza. Just like, do something besides just happy birthday or putting a bunch of clearly AI-generated imagery. But you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Loto. Looking forward to that email. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.